Hey everybody, I'm Kelly.
And I'm Margo with My Favorite Quilt Store. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. I actually need your help today.
I know, you were saying that you got this beautiful quilt done. She took a class from one of our employees on how to do a collage quilt, and she got this collage quilt done. Hey, I see your little Houston Astros here.
I got the Houston Astros, so everything has a meaning, and I'm sure I could go into a very long
Okay, let's not go into a
description.
very long description because we're here because
For the main purpose.
Right, for the main purpose is to put a sleeve on this.
Yes. So what is a sleeve?
So a sleeve is what you use to hang the quilt with. And there's a couple ways you can do it. So
I already have my binding on.
I know you already have your binding on. So I'm going to show you the first way before you have your binding on. Before you have your binding on, if you're going to do a small sleeve, that you're not going to enter this into a contest, because if you enter your quilt in a contest, you really can't sew the sleeve into the binding. That's kind of frowned upon. You have to put the sleeve on separately. So if it's not going to be something that I'm going to put in a competition, it's something I'm going to use, and having a small sleeve, I put it inside the binding so that one side is completely sewed down, so that all I have to do is put the other one slightly up and then hand sew it down, and then I've got it done. And
so if you're not a big fan of hand sewing, this is a good alternative.
Yes, because I'm not a great fan of hand sewing. So this is how I put it on the top of the quilt, all the way across. You go in about 1.5 inches or an inch on each side, on the edge, and make your sleeve and put it in. So this sleeve is about 4 inches wide right here. So you have to cut it 8.5 inches wide to end up with a 4 inch or 3.5 inch. Depending on how big a sleeve you want, you got to double it because you're going to cut it in half and then leave yourself some room for the seam allowance.
Okay. So what about, I see you have some slack in here. What's all that for?
I do. I have some slack in it. So when I fold it in half, and then I give it like about 1/2 inch of slack, because when the pole goes in, you don't want it pulling and making it look bad on the front. So when you have some slack in here, you can put a pole. And I know I'm not going to have a very thick pole. I'm using a hang it dang it or either a curtain rod, usually in mine. And so I don't have a really big pole in there. And so I know I don't have to make it hugely big. So I just make a slack about 1 inch in there.
Okay.
With a 1/2 inch slack plus what we can get out of there.
So I ordered a hang it dang it on Amazon. So that's what we're working with today.
So that's what we're going to work with today.
Yes.
So let's look at this other quilt.
So this would be more my style.
Right.
That we're working
so
on.
This is one that we did that was actually going in a show. So we used a sleeve that was pre-made on it and put it on. So we started about a 1/2 inch down from the binding. You see how that's a 1/2 inch down from the binding?
Is that so you don't see it above the quilt?
Exactly.
Nice. That's a really good thing to keep.
And so this one was put on afterwards. So it was hand sewed on the top and the bottom to the quilt. Again, it's about 1 inch to 1.5 inches off the binding.
That same slack.
So that same, and still the same slack inside it, so that you have room for a pole.
Nice.
Okay. So this is one that was put on afterwards, and that's what you do. How you put it on is you put it on hand sew both sides down, but you got to make sure you leave some slack in there. They left the slack in the top, which is fine. You can leave the slack in the top or the bottom. Doesn't really matter.
Okay.
So I personally like to leave it in the bottom because this way I can sew this one straight on here, and then if I am a little wobbly in it, it's not going to show at the top.
That's
when you're hanging it.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought of that.
When you're hanging it up.
So I just want to zoom in right here too. It looks like it was finished off right here.
It is.
So it was just folded in so that when you put that pole in and out, you're not getting a bunch of fraying fabric.
Exactly. You need to finish the edge of it. So
we'll go through those steps.
That's what we'll go step. And this is a little bit bigger, as you can see, a little bit larger
of a sleeve.
So they made it for a larger pole.
Got it.
So depending upon what you're going to hang it on.
If you're going to use it in a auction or show, you're probably going to want to use the bigger sleeve. They might have the bigger.
They usually have a bigger pole that's about this much in diameter. Whereas, a curtain rod is like this, and the hang it dang it is small. Yeah.
Nice. Well,
okay, so that's some good ideas for that. So let's make your sleeve. So the first thing you've got to do when you're wanting to do a sleeve is you're going to need to get your fabric, and we need to see how wide the quilt is.
So we got 42.5 inches wide.
Okay, so we need to make our sleeve no bigger than 40 inches wide, right?
So we can use the width of the fabric here then.
Yep, we can use the width of the fabric. I'm gonna fold this in half, and we've actually, so I would fold this in half because we have a smaller space, and I'm gonna cut 9.5 inches, And so I would go in from the side here. So I actually use 2 rulers when I'm doing this so that it's easier for me. I'd go in 9.5 inches. I use this one to make my, actually I'm gonna have to cut from this side because I'm right-handed, sorry about that. 9.5 inches right here, and I would make my cut right on this line. I would do my cut right down here. I've actually already cut the piece that we're going to use. So then I would take this off, and this would be my 9.5. This would be my 9.5 inches on this side. So here I have it cut already.
And this is the 9.5 inches by 40.
By 40 inches. Perfect. That is already cut and ready to go.
And we picked this purple because that is my binding as well as the backing.
And the backing. So we wanted to match with it is what she decided she wanted to do. Yes. So now the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to fold in the edges on the side so that we can get a nice great line across that so we won't have any fraying. So let's move to the ironing board.
Okay.
And so the other thing we're going to do is, let's look at this one while we have it here, is we're going to fold it in half. And we're going to sew along this line right here. And then when we iron it, we're going to put that right in the middle of the back seam.
Okay.
So you're going to sew it with wrong sides together when you sew this, okay? So let's first turn in the edges, and let's go down to the ironing board and get that done.
All right, so we just got our iron adjusted and ready to go. So we're gonna fold this in.
Yeah, just a little bit like that.
You want me to do the 2 first?
2 first, so fold it in twice and then hit it with the iron so you can hold it down so you don't have to use any pins or anything. And get it.
Nice.
All right, now do the other side.
Ooh. So 1 fold, 2 fold. And again, this is not something that has to be super accurate, right? Because it's just going on the back of the quilt.
Just going on the back of the quilt. You just want to make sure it's big enough that you're not going to cause a problem. So now what we want to do is stitch it down.
Stitch it down.
Yep.
I have not used this machine in a while. Ooh.
Is it not going? It's thinking about going.
There we go. We're in business.
Okay, great. And here's your snips.
Yes.
And we're done. Is that as fast as it goes?
No, probably can go faster.
Okay.
I'm just nervous. You know when someone's looking at you and it makes you nervous?
Yeah. Is that
now we're on camera, so it's like double nervous.
Okay. All right, I understand that. Here's going to be your scissors right there.
Perfect.
I understand double nervous when you're sewing.
Oh yeah. All right, we're gonna use our amazing snips.
And we're gonna
bring it to the other side.
Yep.
Part 2. I already have my crease here. It did come unfolded, but that's an easy fix.
That is an easy fix. And you know, if you felt like you needed to, you could pin this if you wanted to, but I just don't find it necessary to pin it myself.
But if you wanted to.
But if you want to, you're more than happy to pin that.
Option.
Exactly. If it was a longer seam that you were sewing or a longer place you were sewing, I might do it. You know, you could even use a decorative stitch on this and have it a little decorative if you wanted to.
Well, it's on the back.
It's on the back, I know.
I think I'll save myself a little time. Those decorative stitches can take a little extra time.
They can.
Awesome. We're getting somewhere.
Okay.
Here we go.
Get that snipped off.
Get that snipped again. And we're using 2 different threads just so you can kind of see.
Yeah.
The top we have as pink and the bottom thread we have as a white.
Yep. So now what you're going to do is you're going to fold it in half like this with wrong sides together and sew down the seam and keep those very straight. You can pin it if you want to, but I don't think you're going to need to.
Okay. All right, part 2.
Part 2. So we're going to sew down this seam. Allowance right here, and it is going to be behind the against the quilt,
so it doesn't have to be perfect.
So it doesn't have to be perfect.
Uh-oh, I like being perfect.
I know. You usually are, but you can be perfect on this.
So, do we want to show them the back of the hang-it-dang-it and how that all works?
We can.
that was really fast. Straighten it out. We're almost there.
Okay, perfect.
Perfect. All right.
Okay, now we're gonna go to the iron next.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're going to take this and fold it in half and put that seam right on the back. And then we're gonna fold it down and iron it.
How's that looking?
Yep, I think that looks good. So when I make the sleeve, the first thing I do is I make it completely flat and put no slack in it when I first make it. Because it's easier, for me it's easier to sew it on that way and make sure it's straight across the top. So now what we're gonna do is take this to your quilt and we're gonna pin it across the top, and you'll hand stitch this. And then when you get ready to hand stitch the bottom half, what I do is I fold it up about a ½ inch and pin it and then start stitching it. So that I have this fold line right here. The fold line is right here on it so I can see where my ½ inch is up.
Perfect.
Okay, on there. So what you're going to want to do is center it on the quilt about an inch, ½ inch to ½ inch down, and make sure it's straight all the way across. So that looks like it's pretty straight all the way across.
Perfect.
So we'll use some straight pins and pin this. You can also use safety pins if you're going to travel around with this so that you don't stick yourself. But I like to pin it while I'm on a flat surface, because once you pick it up, it's gonna you might not get it as straight as you normally would if you don't pin it ahead of time. And I'm only gonna pin the top because that's what I'm doing right now. It's just pin the top, and then when I get ready to pin the bottom, sew the bottom, I'll come back and pin the bottom where I want it. So this gets you if you wanted to, you could measure if you want to be precise. I usually just eyeball it because I'm pretty close in eyeballing it most of the time. And so now what you do is hand stitch across the top and get that hand stitched. And then when you go to sew the bottom, you've got this nice crease here in the bottom, and you would just pull that up, and then I would pin these. I would pin it like right here, so that when you're coming through and hand stitching this, you've got that slack already built in there that you need to do it with. So I use this as my guideline, this little crease in there.
So you would not pin this before stitching it?
Right. I'd stitch the top part
and then
stitch this one, then put this one in, because you're gonna see if you have any problems in it, and which hopefully will not have any problems hand stitching that down. And then the reason is because when you come across here and you hit yourself on one of these pins, if you're not using safety pins, you're gonna poke yourself and bleed on the back of your quilt. And
Margo's got good points.
I've done that already once or twice in my lifetime, and so I know that you don't only want to pin if you're using straight pins, which you could easily use your basting safety pins, and it would be great to put it on and travel with and that kind of stuff. Like I said, these pins are a little more dangerous because you can't always poke yourself with them. So anyway, so you're well on your way to having the sleeve on. I can't wait to see when it's done, and you got it hanging in your apartment.
Bring it back for everybody to show off.
So and you got to make sure you put it at the top of the quilt. You got to make sure that you lay your top down.
That would be really funny.
To the
I did all this work and it's on the bottom.
And it's on the bottom, so you want to make sure that the hanging sleeve is definitely at the top of the quilt.
Do we want to show off the back of how it does work in case anybody hasn't seen one before?
Okay, yep, we can look at the hang it, dang it. I was wondering if we had one out, but we only have one hanging, so we can take it down and look at it.
All right, let me pull it down.
So this is an easy device to use. It only takes one nail, so you don't have to put a lot of nails in your walls. So what you do on the hang it, dang it is And a lot of quilt stores carry it. You can also find it online at Amazon and different places. So what it does is you buy them in different lengths because these can come out. So you can do a lot of different lengths of quilts with just one hang it dang it.
Which is awesome.
Which is really, really nice. So so what it has in the middle is a little line, and you line that up with the middle of your quilt. You measure and get the exact middle of your quilt, and then it's got a little clip that you put right in the middle with a little nail hole in it. And once you clip that on and it stays in that position, then behind your quilt, then you just hang it on the wall with your one nail.
And then this is also going to help with that slack as well.
It is, because you need a little bit of slack in here
For the
to
pole to go through.
put the pole through. This one doesn't need a whole lot of slack. And this goes on the outside of the quilt when you get it in the center. You can feel where that crease is when you find the center, and you really should measure to find the center, because that's the most accurate way to do it. Find the center of your quilt, put a pin and up here in your binding, like stick it in there so you know where the center is. And then when you put this hang it dang it in, you can feel inside it where that crease is, and then you can
Stretch out the sides.
stretch out the sides, put your clamp on, and you've got your quilt.
And then all you do is put this on the nail and you're ready to go.
And you put that on the nail and you're ready to go.
Let's try.
It's hanging, and you got your quilt hung.
Yes.
And what I like about it is that you can use.
And if you don't center it.
Well, if you don't center it, this is what happens. That's why you got to center it.
Yes.
And you got to know exactly where your center is. The nice thing about it is that you can quickly change out your quilt. So I'm one that likes to change out my quilts quite a bit.
Yeah.
And this particular device lets me hang different sizes and different things pretty quickly.
And you
on my
don't need a
own.
bunch of them. Like this one we'll switch it out for all the other quilts that we just showed
Right,
earlier to be
right.
able to have it as an example, which is really awesome.
Right, exactly. All right, guys, we appreciate you joining us,
Yeah.
and we hope you learned something here, and happy quilting.